Just keep an eye on that big clock. So the way I wanted to start off was, really, Amanda, I'm going to start with you first. Tell me about your role at the BCW and what types of events you have.
So what I do at the Business Council is pretty much start to finish on every event that the organization hosts. We do upwards of 80 events a year, and I am in charge of everything from booking the venue to the vendors to strategizing a marketing plan with, of course, the help of Thompson and Vendor, and day of logistics, acting as a liaison with sponsors, and then, of course, doing follow-up with guests and attendees. So literally soup to nuts.
80 events is a lot.
Yes.
It's a lot. And we see you all work. We see you working very hard. You know a lot of these faces, but they don't really know all of what you do. They only know that day. So it's a good thing. Arlette, how about yourself?
So I'm the Director of Events for the Westchester Medical Center Health Network, which means we have 10 hospitals in our network right now. Same as Amanda, I see all the events from Kingston Health Alliance, Mid-Hudson Regional Hospital, Westchester Medical Center, and Good Samaritan. We do all of the fundraising and all of the internal events. So if we onboard a new doctor and we're opening a new department in the hospital, we'll do the events internally. We'll also do all the signature fundraisers for all of the hospitals. So we probably do about, I would say 40 signature fundraisers and then all of the internal events for all the different hospitals in our system.
Oof, that's a lot. 10 hospitals. It's incredible. And that's all changed just in a few years, right?
Yes, you've been all the way up to Saugerties, so you know our span, and out to Port Jervis, so we, quite a span in the Hudson Valley.
Keep growing. We love it. Keep us working. And Jessica, I'm going to bring the same question to you because you have a slightly different take on things.
Yeah, mine's a little bit different. So working for Thompson and Vendor, we're an agency. We actually work with the BCW and Westchester Medical Center, so I work with these two ladies a lot. And in certain times, we assist with events, so I'll work with them and just sort of be and assist with those events. And then there are other events for different clients that we do start to finish. And a lot of it is a mix because we do a lot of real estate development events, so groundbreakings and grand opening events. And then I also do the Westchester Magazine Wine and Food Festival event, coordinating that. So that's a whole other different animal of an event. So I do a lot of a variety of things.
Well, everybody here love the Wine and Food Festival. There's a lot of people usually writing their names in for that one ahead of time, you know. But
we already have the dates booked if you guys want to.
But you guys all have signature events, and then you have just a whole bunch of other ones that I would imagine the timelines are probably a little different than the signature events. I mean, how far ahead do you know about the Hall of Fame or the annual dinner?
Well, I would say for the signature events, I mean, when I first started with the company, it was about a 9-month window. Now I've gotten it down to about a 6-month, but I'm constantly trying to just get ahead of myself. So typically when one event is done, I'm already walking out the door saying, I'll call you tomorrow, let's get 2019 on the calendar. So sooner rather than later, in my book, as much as possible.
Well, you're definitely a planner by nature, though, without a question. Now, Arlette, I would imagine your timelines are short, just due to the nature of...
So I have to say, I'm going to pat myself on the back that I have all of our 2019 galas locked in across the network. So that's huge to be able to do that and then do all of these other things that pop up. But I mean, September alone, we are doing 12 signature fundraisers across our network. So we have 12 different huge events, some of them netting close to $300,000. And then we have all the other little things that pop up. So we're doing a series of opioid conferences throughout the county. We're doing all the construction that's happening at Westchester Medical Center, all the different departments that are opening in that ACP pavilion. Those pop up, on a daily.
Yeah.
So
that's why you need to plan ahead on the bigger ones, because the other ones just magically happen.
They just appear.
And I mean, wine and food, I know you work ahead of time. Because
that's way ahead of time. But a lot of the other ones, like the real estate events, they can pop up and within a couple of weeks. I mean, this past May, there were several events that we did that literally popped up within like 2 to 3 weeks notice. And I was, calling to book everything and get everything lined up and ready to go quickly. They don't always plan ahead, the real estate people.
Well, and see, that is why our timelines are what they are. Because the signature events, as they're telling you right now, we usually know about in advance. But it's all of those smaller events that happen very quickly, and so we usually have 2 weeks or less at that point. By the time you guys roll around to us, it's usually a little tighter timeline, you know. And that's just the nature of it, because you're planning everything from the beginning to the end. And that's part of why we're doing this, is to really, so everybody can understand how it happens, the cycle. But since, you know, you guys are going to have a good feel for this. Arlette, I'm going to start with you on this one. With, 40 to 50 events, with 12 in September, I mean, what makes an event successful?
What makes an event successful is being a good planner and having good vendors. I only look as good as corporate AV makes me look, right? I only look as good as the florist is and the caterer is. So I could be the best planner on the back end. If I don't hire good, reliable vendors that I trust, that know what mission and what I'm trying to accomplish for that event, it's never going to happen. So when we bring in corporate AV, I know, and I mean, venturing into these newer hospital systems and working with new vendors, I know you know what I'm trying to achieve at a gala, what's important and what's not. And it's peace of mind for me to have vendors that are really helping me accomplish my mission and being successful.
Okay. Well, we can certainly appreciate that, and we want to be a part of that at all times. Especially, we'll talk about those 12 events in September. Jess, let's bring that one to you.
Very similarly, I would say teamwork, because it is more than just one person. There is the main person planning. And another really key thing that I find with event planning is because, and this really is mostly day of, is resourcefulness. Because for yourself, the event planner and all of your vendors, that's a really important quality to have, because you never know what's going to happen, who's going to be late, who's going to change something, who's going to send you a PowerPoint like 5 minutes before and then change it again. So being able to be sort of like adaptable and resourceful day of is, I think, a really important thing to make an event successful.
We can certainly appreciate that. We had to come up with a lot of plan Bs for the wedding this past weekend, so I understand what you're saying. Rick was part of those plan Bs at one point. Amanda, how about, what are your thoughts on what makes an event successful?
I mean, whenever I tackle an event new or one that I've done in a repeat, calendar, for me, it's about the why. Why are we doing this event? So certain events that we do through the Business Council are going to have a very different motivation compared to an event that you're going to do. Like, you're doing fundraisers. Mm-hmm. For us, the Business Council, our events are very much about our members and our attendees and what they're getting out of the event. Mm-hmm. So if it is a panel discussion, then obviously AV has to be on point because of sound or video or whatever it is. The Business Council does do a fundraiser once a year, but it's a different outlet then. So to me, whether it's a wedding, a social event, a food and wine festival, there has to be a purpose behind it, and you as the planner has to know what that is in order to lay out every goal.
Yeah, we with all the events, over the course of the year, we're usually involved in about 500 different events. And there are many cases where people miss the why. I mean, we see a lot of fundraisers where there's not a picture about what the event's for. It's an event for children. There's not a child's face anywhere in the building. And you're going, I think they missed the purpose here. They usually don't do well. You can't win them all, but AV is good though. But, okay, no, I mean, I think all of your answers make sense. Having good vendors, having people you trust, knowing the why, being resourceful, those things all make a lot of sense. And hopefully you guys are getting that message, because those are critical things to what we're doing on site at any time. Especially resourcefulness is a really, it really fits a lot of what we do, to be honest, because we have a lot of weird things happen. But very good. Let me just keep on that part a little bit. In terms of, Jess, I'm going to send this one your way, but
okay.
When you bring on audiovisual and lighting and production in general, what is it that you're looking for from a team like us?
I would say one thing that I'm looking for is to make the event look and sound good at the end of the day. That's the whole, purpose of bringing in sound and AV, is because that's what we need to make the event look well and look polished. So that would mean quality, and that's something that you guys definitely have, like all of the equipment you have and the quality of your team, because they're all extremely knowledgeable and work really well on site and are always arriving early, and it's that reliability and that quality. So that's definitely what I'm looking, and you guys always deliver that.
Well, that's good. We appreciate that. It's there are things we're trying to actively work on, but in the end, that's everybody needs to know the what you're looking for, and we want to make sure we're hitting that goal just like you're trying to hit your goal. And so usually the more you can communicate it to us ahead of time, it really does help. It's all part of our experience so that we can deliver your experience. But all right, Amanda, I'm going to pass this one over to you. What is it you're kind of looking for out of AV and production and lighting?
I always look for a seamless factor. I am not an overly technical person. I mean, it took me a week to figure out how to close out the apps on my new iPhone 10. So half the time, I'll know I need a speaker, a microphone, and a mixer, and that's fine. But other times, I know what I want, but I don't know necessarily what I need. And I also then, the day of, I'm going to entrust that you're executing that goal effectively, and that quality is there. So just that seamlessness from me calling you or Rick and saying, okay, this is what we need, can this happen? And your response to me is usually, oh yes, it can, and then you will take the time to explain it to me. Most of the time it goes over my head, but that seamless factor, and then that creativity too. As event planners, we have to balance so many different aspects of an event, and something as simple as, I want a new backdrop, what do you have, what are some suggestions, what are some ideas, or, oh, I saw something, can you do this for me? And you're the technical people, you're the vendor, you're the ones that are going to be the professionals about this, so I am relying on your expertise to a certain extent to help elevate my basic idea and make it a reality.
Okay, so it's good if we bring you different ideas
Yes.
and thoughts.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, and that applies to
Yeah,
both of you guys too?
definitely.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's always helpful to know, because part of why we do this is to, of course, learn new things, and we go to different shows around the, some are in Florida, some are in Vegas, wherever it comes each year, but we go to try to learn about what's out there and what's new. And the intention is to maybe scale it down and bring it to however it's going to apply, so to your events, or maybe it can't go to this groundbreaking, but maybe it can go to this other type of event, or maybe it's not for Good Samaritan, but maybe it's a fit for the medical center. Either way, I mean, every group has got its kind of own personality.
I think too, because of the team, I mean, you guys are always kind of behind the scenes, and when we're doing events, again, we're balancing 100 things at once, so we can't always pay as much attention to very specific details. But if your team's behind the curtain and going, oh, you want to know what, like next time they should really do it this way, it'll sound better, or oh, that might look better next time. I mean, I'm 100% open to those suggestions, because I don't always get the time to pause, smell the roses, and see that aspect of it.
All right, so some feedback maybe after the event takes place too. Say, okay, we should try this. Maybe we should replace the DJ for
Yeah.
a certain event.
I actually had a
I'm not
discussion about that today, I swear.
Even though he was fine this year. He was fine this
No,
year.
I want a band.
And have we delivered that experience? I guess that's
Absolutely.
really
I wouldn't have the big red curtain if
Oh.
I didn't,
the big red curtain. It's a good fit, good fit. But it's going to be a big blue curtain
It's going to be
this
a big
time.
blue curtain this time.
Okay, and Arlette, you have anything you want to add in on this?
No, I
this
think
piece?
they really, said it all. I personally like to have you guys set up all your equipment and then make you move it, technically, is what we go through at our gala every year. But
Yeah, that's
just,
appreciated less, I got to tell you.
just how accommodating you guys are. Like Amanda said, I'm not over, like, you show me what you're going to bring to an event, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that looks great. It means nothing to me, but I tell you what I want to accomplish, and you guys have never fallen short of that.
So accommodating is a pretty big thing then, too.
You're very accommodating.
Oh,
I
okay.
think there's been multiple times where I've said, okay,
But there's
those
one time
TVs
Cara
have to
remembers,
move.
Cara remembers one time that I was not accommodating. It was so late in the game, there was no way to be accommodating at that moment.
But you're still nice when you tell us no.
Yeah.
You have a way.
Well, we did talk about that, right?
That
we talked
charisma
about
that
that
he's got.
yesterday. Well, it's your event. I mean, the reality is we're a tool for you to accomplish your goal. You know, we like to think we're more than that, but it's your event. It's not really our event. We take personal pride in it. But in the end, you have to reach your attendees. You have to reach your doctors or your fundraise, you know, the people you're trying to raise money from. And you have to just reach everybody. So,
Yeah.
you know.
That and get media attention.
I mean, yeah, and then the media.
Get the press,
you know,
yeah.
So, but, you know, interestingly enough, I think all of you guys in your different roles or maybe in past roles have worked with other people in the past. Anything either positive or negative as far as experience-wise from your past situations, take us out of the equation. I know a lot of you guys don't know, but Amanda worked at the Castle previously. Before we ever got to the Castle, Amanda was over at the Castle. You know, Arlette's spent time really working with one hospital first and then had multiple vendors there. I mean, so she has experiences as well. And Jessica works with so many different events and different groups that I am positive at some point she's dealt with someone besides corporate AV. So I guess
It's been a while, but
I'm
yeah.
looking for a little feedback on, you know, maybe what are some things that either did or didn't deliver that maybe we just don't know about as part of the training, you know, for my team.
I mean, I have to say, last year I was doing a gala and I was working with somebody else because I kind of stepped in a little bit late in the game. And I never will forget, I emailed the AV company, and I can't even remember who it was at this point in time, and I asked them about playing walk-up music for honorees approach the stage. I never thought it was such a big issue because you've always handled that for me and there's never been any questions asked. And this company told me, we don't play music for you. We don't do any of your sound. And I was like, you don't? Well, what do you do? So, I mean, I have never, even if I have a bad idea, Joe, you have a way with kind of talking me out of it or finding a better way to do things, but I've never heard you tell me that something can't be done. And that's huge because I have this goal that I have to reach for this event. And like I said, I'm not on the technical end of things, so I don't know any better, but it goes back to always being accommodating and always finding a way to get it done, get that end product.
Okay. Well, you know, there are some, look, the reality is there are some requests that are very difficult to achieve. There might be something else we can do, though.
Right.
And the question is just getting a second to think about it and say, okay, maybe, because it usually boils to time or money. At some point, there's a lack of resources.
Hanging lights. We've gone through this with hanging lights, right?
Yeah. Hanging lights can be a real process, but but no, and so that's part of, you know, what we're talking to our team about over the course of these 2 days is, you know, if there is something that maybe physically can't be accommodated with the timeline you're given, how do you approach that situation? How do you say no without saying no?
Right.
Or what else can you do? Which is really more important.
You always offer an alternative solution, which in the end makes more sense.
There's just factors that, you know, usually the technical team might be aware of. That you just have so many other things you're working on. There's no way for you to even know that if you change one thing, it changes 10 others. There's just no way to know that. There's too much going on. And your timeline is short and your bosses are there and then the attendees start coming in. I mean, there's just no way to, the great thing about events is they begin and end, right? Yes. So it always has to begin.
And then you don't think about them for 365 days.
But yeah, any different experiences from you guys, you know, because this is helpful to our team.
I have one. It was several years ago, and it was with this other. We were launching a new with a client. We were launching a new campaign, and part of it was a TV campaign. And we were sort of having like a press conference launch, and we needed TV screens to air the commercials that we had just done and produced. And the company we were working with, one showed up late, two, one of the TVs that they brought didn't work. It just wasn't functioning. There was something wrong with it. And of course, like we understand something may go wrong on the travel over. So they went to get another one and to replace it, but it was a different size and they were two. And so one, it looked weird. And then actually it was actually a really bad disaster. And then on top of that,
Sorry, I didn't mean
The
to
more
bring
you
it up.
think
it
of
was
this
tough.
now, you're like,
the more
oh,
I
this
think
is
about it, I'm
bad.
like, I was livid the next day. And on top of it, when we went to actually cue during the program, we had several people speaking, and then cue the video, and it worked on one screen, and it didn't work on the other. So that combination, it really was just a bad day, and you know, bad days happen, but the being late, that would have helped in, if the equipment wasn't working, getting that replaced quicker and making sure that it was happening. And because, I would say because of that, everything was delayed, and those issues that arise, and like I talked about earlier, being resourceful, there was no time for that. So arriving on time and arriving early to prepare for the event, if something does go wrong, there's time to fix it before the actual event or program begins, and it could be addressed then. So that was an experience that I definitely learned from.
It sounds like a difficult day.
It was a difficult day.
But, you know, arriving on time is one of the things that we had discussed pretty heavily yesterday. It's something we always talk about.
And you guys are actually always early. Sometimes, like, you show up and I'm
I
like,
never check
I'll get
that
like a
they're
call and
coming.
you guys are like, oh, like I'm here. I'm like, oh, all right, I'll be there in 20 minutes.
Like, you guys start, I'll catch up to you.
just start unloading the truck. Let's go.
Well, that's good. That's what we're trying to do, because we know that things sometimes change. And sometimes not everything works well.
Right.
So you do need a little more time to then find a way to make it work well.
Right, exactly.
You know, and usually you guys aren't aware of any of that anyways. But there are things that have happened at all of your events, behind the scenes.
I was gonna say the bliss that we never knew about.
You don't need to know about that. You just need a result, correct?
Yes.
Exactly.
And I mean, would it be helpful if we came to you and said, you know, this other TV's just not working, sorry?
Yeah.
You know, like,
No, it's like I was like, they didn't even need. I'm like, don't tell me. Just like
Just
go
fix it.
and come back, and then I would see you bringing a new TV and be like, oh, don't worry about it. Like, I just brought a new one. Okay, fine.
well, that's it sounds like an unfortunate experience.
It
but,
was. Yeah.
You know, but it's things that, you know, our team can at least learn from
Right.
somebody else's bad day.
Yeah.
We'll say, you know. Anything previously at the castle? I mean, I know slightly different events, but
Well, it's interesting because I've been on both sides of this kind of planning process. I've actually been the vendor. I spent the first 13 years of my career doing weddings and social events and celebratory bar bat mitzvahs. So I've been the person that has dealt with event planners, and I've also been the client and the planner. You know, and I'm sure if I really thought about it, there had been some nightmare situations, but I think it's just its ownness in general. You know, when something goes wrong or something's not working out, I'm not looking to place blame, and I'm hoping that a client wouldn't be looking to place blame either. It's more a matter of, okay, here's the problem, let's figure it out, and if it's something that we don't want to happen in the future, okay, fine, well then we'll sit down after the fact and talk it over and say, okay, we don't want to deal with this again. But other times it's just in that moment, and it's just, you know, like you said, like, oh, the TV's not working. Okay, well, I physically can't do anything about that, and as much as I would like to get upset about it, I need you guys just to get me a new TV that works, because you know I need TVs. I mean, how many times have we done stuff at events where the stage was set up and they didn't have the stairs, so your guys ran over within 20 minutes of the event and brought me stairs? You know, I can't build them, I can't fix them, so I just kind of need that, you know, getting in my head to just fix the problem.
yeah. No, that resourcefulness, you know, just the word keeps kind of coming back, because it is something that I think all event planners need in
Oh, we've
some
all
way,
MacGyvered
shape, or
something
form.
at some point.
And I've watched everybody do something at some point, like, all right, we're going to have to do this instead. You know, you guys are all really good with that. And, you know, and I know that you have some people that they want it to be perfect.
Yes.
And your team always wants it perfect. So, and, you know, Marsha's a little more flexible, but she still wants it perfect too.
Well, I mean, we all go into every
Yeah.
event wanting it to be perfect, but we've, I think, all done this long enough to know that no matter what, something always goes wrong. Something always has to get changed at the last minute, and it's really just how you respond to it. If you don't respond well, then yes, it could be an absolute catastrophe. But if you just are resourceful, or you figure it out, and you know what your job is, and you know that you're there to do it, you'll just react, and you'll just make it happen. It won't even be a question or a thought or a conversation. It'll just happen.
And so, what kind of feelings are When you go to one of the technical team, what is it you're looking for as a response to whatever your problem is? How do you want them to give you the news or the message?
I think just being honest, but also being knowledgeable. I mean, again, you guys are the professionals in what you're doing, specifically with AV and video and technical, and we're not. So, be honest with me. Let me know what the issue is. Give me the solution, but explain it to me too. Don't just be like, oh, something's not working. I mean, I feel like at least if I understand what the problem is and I know, okay, it's going to take 20 minutes to fix. Okay, well then I'm not going to come bother you in 7 minutes and go, why is this not working? I'll give that time to do what needs to be done. And trust your skills.
Yeah, I would say that that last piece that you just said, the time of like, okay, I'm working on this, this, and this. It'll be like, because that's one of the things, like, and I'm sure you don't either. Like, I don't want to be like walking over and bugging you every 5 minutes if like whatever it is that you're working on is going to take 10 minutes. So that's the time. I think just sort of like responding and kind of saying like, okay, giving it an alternate option if something is working, not working, explaining it, and then letting us know like, this is how long it's going to be, or this is what's going to happen, and just explaining that. So then, especially, in situations where like I then need to go and explain it to like the client or to like my boss, like to Liz, like, oh, this is what's going on, just so you know, don't worry about this, it's being fixed, it's being handled. So I can go up to the client or whomever and say, oh, if they notice something, don't worry, it's being handled, like, give it 5 minutes. I'll be able to tell them, and that's really important.
So you have the information and you can report back to the team or your client
to the team
or
yeah, exactly.
whoever you need to.
It's one thing to say like, I don't know. It's another thing to say, I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out. Come back to me in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That makes a big difference.
I feel like we had that
Yeah.
comment yesterday. I feel like that actually came up. That's good, almost verbatim.
I don't even need to know what the problem is. Just fix it. Lie to me. Tell me there is no problem. And just make sure that TV works when it's time to start at 6 o'clock. So I have enough on my plate that I don't want to be breathing down your back. So I know you guys are professionals at what you do, and I trust that you will execute properly and efficiently.
Well, that's always the intention. It's always, but it's part of what we're trying to, work with our team on, and is really on what actions they can take, and how they can respond to, again, about that experience, And, obviously we've talked about different things. We're trying to make it less stressful, not more stressful, really, so that's part of what we're trying to discuss. I guess in the big picture, how can we improve on our experience in the service of what we're giving to you guys now? I'll direct this to you first.
I mean, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong that needs to be improved on because something's not working. I think it's more, I'm always looking for ways to make events interesting. With doing 80 events a year, an event can get stale very, very quickly. And if you don't keep changing things up, whether it's food and beverage, whether it's entertainment, whether it's lighting, whether it's backdrops, whatever it might be. So again, I'm looking to you as the professionals to say, oh, Amanda, why don't we do this time? Or, oh, we worked together on that last event and this was really cool, but I had this idea and what do you think of this? So for me, again, it's not an improvement on something that's not going right. It's more everything is really going well. So how do we now up it? How do we take it to that next level and just kind of blow it out of the water?
Okay, no, I agree, because I think it's hard to keep events fresh.
Yeah.
I think it's work, because people also, a lot of your attendees attend other events, especially during the season, because we see a lot of them in many places.
Yeah.
So in a week, I could see the same person 3 times, to the point that we actually say hello to each other, and and yet I don't know them at that moment. But so it is hard to keep events fresh, and the question is how do you go about doing that? And so any way we can help out, just obviously ask. But that's part of why we want to try to keep looking at things all the time. Arlette, how about yourself?
I really agree with Amanda on that. I mean, last year, for instance, at our Good Samaritan Spring Ball, you guys brought in some really cool TV walls. I hadn't seen them at any other event. I was blown away by them. So I think you guys staying up and trendy in your field and bringing it back to us and bringing us new lighting and new TVs and, the latest equipment just makes it that much better.
So it's helpful.
It is
to
helpful.
know about those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
But sometimes it can just be changing an angle of something, and and it helps. I mean, we actually did change the angle at that particular event
Yeah.
on the spot because there was more tables added, there was more people, and an adjustment was needed, and it worked out much better than what even our original thought process would have been. So, you know, we need your input as well on that to know what direction to look in.
Yep.
But very helpful. Jess?
And I mean, I would definitely echo what both of these ladies just said. And I mean, yeah, I would say there really isn't much to, we work with you guys all the time. We always have a really good experience. And so I would basically say just keep doing what you're doing. Just keep making sure that you do what you do best. And you guys are very knowledgeable and up on the technology and, arrive early and are always, very pleasant to work with and fun to work with. So definitely, because that's a thing too. Whenever we're at events and stuff, like we want to have fun too. So it's definitely nice to have, work with you guys. You guys all have like, good personalities and we'll play fun music while we're setting up, which is fun. So I would kind of just say keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm sure it was a little less fun for one of your events in June. But either way. No, those points are well taken because it's just people helping people in the end. And you all work together and we see everybody. And, it's somewhat by coincidence, but not totally by coincidence that these guys kind of all know each other in some capacity. They work together, they work together, they just met. They'll probably work together in some point in the future. I mean, you just never know, and that's how a lot of relationships work, and especially in smaller communities. But, everybody considers Manhattan to be this giant community, and that's really the same, too. I mean, we run into the same people over and over. So it really isn't any different. It's just people working with other people.
And I think that's the big point is it's about the relationships. I mean, even though we're the ones running the events and maybe we're the quote-unquote client, I mean, I don't look at any vendor I work with as that they're working for me. For me, when I do an event, we're working together to do this because, if something happens on my end that screws you up or vice versa, it's all going to kind of go awry anyway. So it's about creating these relationships and, like you said, knowing the guys and having fun and getting to know everybody. And then it makes it more enjoyable for everybody because when you're showing up at 6 o'clock in the morning to set up all day, I mean, how much more fun is it to do it when you're there with someone you think of as a friend and a partner versus a vendor, an employee.
Yeah, no, the days get long, so
You do.
it's nice to have a little bit of fun while you're doing it,
Yeah.
And that's that happens to be one of the reasons we're actually fairly close as a unit. As a group, we do spend time together and almost like each other. I mean, it's close, but it depends on the day.
The days that have a
Yeah,
balance.
today I'm not sure. It's really hot, so I'm not sure today. But either way. I'd actually like to open it up to some questions if you guys are prepared to handle a few questions. So I'll send this out to the audience and see what we have here. Yes, Mr. Young Finch in the front. You're still young Ryan Finch.
You work with a number of different vendors for a lot of different things. I'm sure there are some groups that you work with, on a recurring basis, not just on AV, but at what point, or does it happen, where a vendor becomes, in your eyes, more like a partner than just someone who buys something? Anyone can answer.
So, I mean, when we have executed an event together and it's flawless, I look at you now as a partner. Every time we do an event together, I don't look at Joe like he works for me and I'm the client. We're working together because the end, he wants to look good, I want to look good, we want our guests to have a good experience. If the microphone doesn't work or the TVs don't turn on, everybody's going to know. I don't look good, he doesn't look good. So it is a partnership. It's all teamwork. They said that. It's being resourceful. It's being a team. One hand washes the other for it to all come together and be successful.
And I think for us too, because we do so many of them, it's not like I'm just planning one event and then I'll never see you again. So for me, I want that longevity. I want to just be able to call Joe up and be like, oh my goodness, we now have a PowerPoint. I need this in 24 hours, and it happens. I don't want to have to think that through or have to now find a new vendor to all of a sudden fill in. So for me, it's right off the bat.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I agree with both of what you guys said, and that being able to like pick up the phone and talk to you or talk to you, Ryan, and be like, hi, this is what I need. and I need it tomorrow, and you always say yes. Somehow, it's like you always say yes. I'm like, this is great. And that, to me, is a partner, because I know that I can rely on you guys, and it's that reliability, I think, that makes a good partner.
And it's the trust. There's a lot of trust that I have in you, and I think you have in me, that I'm gonna plan a good event, you're gonna.
I'm counting on you, that's all I know.
So, I mean, there's nothing easier than picking up the phone and saying, Joe, put this date, this date, this date, and this date in your book, and I'll call you back with the details. And just know that he's gonna circle back and he's gonna follow up for the details. It gives us peace of mind, especially when she's planning 80 events a year, or I'm planning 50 events a year, and so it's that trust.
You know, it's funny, as we're talking about you give us those dates. The only way we can handle I need this tomorrow is because we've kind of planned out the further ahead dates. And we spent some time talking about that, and usually the summer is when we kind of lock in a number of things for the fall, and then January we lock them in for the spring. It's that same kind of thought process, because it's really our most important clients that call us late, is the way our long-term relationships. And we know we have to be able to say yes, we have to be able to do it. And that's not always easy, but we know that that's what you're counting on us for. And that's part of what we discuss a lot, because, it does get stressful, it does get difficult sometimes during the seasons, the way the times are and the timelines.
And especially too, because I'm sure, I don't think any of our events overlap specifically, but there's so many events going on within the county for so many different organizations and sometimes you are competing with dates. So if you aren't prepared and get them on ahead of time, I don't ever want to call you guys and have you be like, oh, we're booked for the day. Doesn't fly with me. So I'll tell you 6 months in advance if I can.
And we love that. Thank you. Very good. Another question?
How important is it, to get that feeling that you're on the same page when a person walks in, they've got a plan in their hand, it's the same plan you've been working with, and they say, well, I talked to Joe and he said this is what we're doing, and you're like, yeah, that's what you're doing, and obviously it has to do with communication. So that's what I'm asking is, how important is it to know that your communication is working, that when you're talking to us, we're hearing you?
Oh, I think in event planning, that's like 110%. You might have a difference of opinion or a different thought or something, as the vendor coming in. But if us as planners want A, but you as the vendor are coming in and you're like, absolutely not, let's do C, not because you actually think it's better, just because that would be the preference, right, or easier. I think that makes like I said, 110%. Got to be on the same page.
Have you ever seen that before, where somebody just wants to do something different than what you want?
Back in my days of doing weddings, absolutely. Like a DJ would come in or a florist would come in, and I'm like, I don't remember discussing any of this with you guys, but okay. Sometimes it can fly and sometimes it doesn't. But I don't think recently, I would say, I've seen it.
See, it always comes back to that DJ again.
That DJ.
It always comes back to that.
That poor DJ.
That's why you got to go with dance.
He knew he was such a hot topic of discussion all the time.
It was just meanwable, there's so much else going on.
Yeah.
It always zoomed right back into this one little tiny thing,
Always.
But anyways, are there any other questions from?
I have.
Yes. You're on.
Okay, I have a question regarding Westchester Medical Center. Okay. I notice in different places they do events, and health organizations, they do events that are geared towards children and teenagers. And have you ever had an experience, was there ever an experience where the AV companies would have a conflict with just because they were children and they scream and it gets hectic, like during the event?
So a lot of our internal events that deal with the children, like we do an event, Ladybug Idol. It's very small, and we have some of our own AV equipment, and we have somebody that works on staff that would handle those events. So a lot of the events that we're hiring corporate AV for, they're bigger. The children aren't really at them or involved with them so much. So I don't think we've had any instances, but we've had adults that act like children, right?
Yeah.
We've had a couple of those.
Yeah.
They're actually worse, because
Yeah.
at least you expect it from a child.
We're going to protect the names of the innocent.
So no, I've never had an issue with corporate AV or any AV company and a child. I mean, photography, they don't always, abide by the rules, and they kind of roll around on the floor, but it's, it's a child, so we learn how to deal with it.
Yeah, a number of years back, we used to do a lot of different doctor conferences and things. And some of them could get fairly detailed and somewhat gruesome. So you'd have to have specific people to work on specific crews, really. Because there might be performing some sort of surgery or something. But we haven't got into that in a long time.
No.
So, but the questions are all good, so I understand there's a question over here, question over there. Fire away.
I have another question. Now, this doesn't have to be limited to just AV staff. This could be floral, it could be photography, anybody. But when it comes to the event staff themselves, so maybe not your main point of contact, but the guy who's behind the scenes, do you have any individual pain points that you can point to? Or I don't know that person's name, but I really wish they weren't doing that.
I always ask who's coming to the event. I always want to know everyone's name, because even though I make the arrangements with you, Zach might be the one that's coming, or Rick might be there, and for me, I don't want to be like, hey, you. I want to know who I'm working with the day of. So, unless, again, I've worked with you a million times and I pretty much know everybody, I always ask who's coming that day.
Joe's really good. I mean, with your company, we see you guys a lot. We know a lot of you gentlemen and ladies. And Joe's really good with saying, Dom's going to be at your girls' night out, so he'll take care of you, or somebody else. So that's nice. It's nice to know who you're working with and what to expect. Not that we ever doubt any of you.
Does that answer your question, young Finch?
Even beyond just for maybe the people who are new starting out, as AV technicians or stage hands, anything that kind of stands out as something that you're like, oh, that looks like you maybe don't know what you're doing, or you wish that they would.
So maybe pet peeves of some sort, or
What I was looking for.
Pet peeves.
that's why I'm still your mentor. Yeah, for that very reason.
I would say that introducing yourself.
Yeah.
On the
yeah,
flip side,
exactly.
if for some reason I didn't get a name or I didn't get who you were with, I mean, if usually we're pretty clear that we're the ones running around and trying to maintain control of everything. So if you're showing up at an event and you're like, oh, okay, or we're the client, come seek us out, introduce yourself. I'm so-and-so from such and such. And yeah, I would say that's a pet peeve. If I all of a sudden see someone running around and I'm like, I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Because it's weird to be like, wait, what is that? Should I go say hello?
Is that a party crasher over there? They're a little
or,
bit early.
Yeah. Or if you're doing an event somewhere where it's somewhat public and you're like, is that just a passerby, or are they actually wait, no, they have some piece of equipment, and then that's a little weird. So
Okay,
yeah, I
so
would definitely
introductions
say
are
introductions
very important.
Yeah.
Being identifiable. Okay, these are good things.
I would say the only other thing too, and because I came from a hotel background, we used to have a rule, and I forget what it was called, but it was basically like, as you're approaching somebody, you look up from what you're doing, you make eye contact, you say hello. So even if you're loading in equipment or you're setting something up, you just take that time to say hello. And I think that would probably go with any of your clients. Just, oh, hi, how are you? And you just maintain that level of communication. I think that's.
Yeah. And you know what? I actually kind of somewhat, this just made me think of this too, especially when you said communication, is especially a lot of times, with these events, like you said, we're setting up all day and we'll be there all day, or we'll be there several hours early, and you guys will come and set up. I would say a pet peeve with anything is if all of a sudden I'm walking around and I had to go over there because the client asked me about whatever's outside in the parking lot, and then I come back and then I'm like, oh, I wanted to do this, or I wanted to talk to the photographer or if you disappear, it would be good to know just where you or if for example we don't know each other when we first say hello, exchange numbers, and then this way, if I come back and then maybe you went wherever, we had 2 hours before the event, this way, if there is something, I can get in touch. So I would say that would be, it doesn't happen very often, but that would be like a pet peeve of a vendor if like all of a sudden I was like, oh, I don't know where they went, and I don't have their number.
Okay.
If I have the number, it doesn't matter, because then I can just get in touch, but.
So if at that particular point, an hour beforehand, they have to go and change, or
Exactly,
they say,
yeah.
you know what, I'm just not going to get a chance to eat. Let me just
Yeah.
grab something to eat. Just make sure that you're aware of it. Provide your number. Say, here,
Yeah.
I'm going to be right down the street, or I'm going to be right over here, just
Yeah.
changing. But just so you know.
Yeah, just so you know, I need to do X, Y, Z. I'm gonna, just here's my number if there's any emergencies, but everything's set, and especially saying everything's set up and you're all good. It's always great. That reassurance of, you're good to go. We've got this handled is always helpful.
Well, that's a very good point, because sometimes we don't think of that. Because we know we're in a timeline, and
Yeah.
we know, well, this has to happen, but I really got to eat. Because it's been 8
Really? You
hours,
eat at
and it's going to be
events?
8 more hours.
Right.
So it does come up. So these are really good points, and that's why they're here. They're here to tell you all the things that are really important to them that we don't think about sometimes. So it's a good question and really good feedback. Alex, did you have another question, or Damon? Does someone have another question over there?
Well, my
Yes,
question is a little complicated, and I was quite sure of how to voice it. So, but I'll give it a shot. How do you handle relationships with vendors or service providers when you get an offer from a third-party service provider that's almost too good to be true at a budget that's much more in the vein of what you need in terms of savings? How do you maintain good relationships, or even how do you even handle that outside service provider when they're approaching you with something that's really, really, really tasty?
That's a good
It's
question.
interesting. We actually recently had this come up with something we were discussing with a potential client, and I don't know, somebody just gave them the project for free or something. It was like
Exactly.
$30,000 for
Exactly.
nothing. And we just go, all right, well, that seems weird, but okay, but I think that's where you're trying to go, is if something seems too good to be true, what do you do with that? Is that the question?
Well, it was an experience I actually had, and that outside service provider was working on developing the relationship and getting the job, so they bartered. They offered their services free of charge as a sponsor, and X'd out the production team that I was working with.
Yeah, that's
So-
a different situation.
Right.
Yeah, well, I'll open it up to you guys.
That has happened several times, I think, between us, between corporate AV and myself with some events, as well as so it's kind of twofold. When somebody offers their services as a donation to the hospital, like last year, somebody did a video for one of our galas, and they did it for free. And what do you think that means, really, on the other side of things? They did it for free. They're doing it as a donation. It wasn't the best quality that we were used to. So it wasn't something, it was hard for me because it was a relative of somebody being honored. So it was a very sticky political, situation. But, and sometimes, even it's out of my control. We did the video, and I looked at, some people in the room, and I said, never again. We're never going to let somebody donate services. There's certain things that it was hard to hear. It wasn't the best, production, and it reflected because nobody else knew, oh, that video was donated. So it just looked poor on my end. So I kind of learned that the hard way. Now, having the conversation with a vendor that you've worked with for years and years and years, I mean, honesty is the best policy. I know it's business is business. It doesn't affect our relationship. And if I had the choice, I would choose who I felt, did the best quality and the best service for the price. So, but I mean, it's happened to us. We've had people that have come in and donated services here and there, and I've had to tell Joe, listen, I'm sorry, but
It happens.
it happens. And not to take it personal. So
I'm a little broken up now.
he is.
Thank you. I didn't want to have to cry publicly.
You're opening all these topics, all of these topics.
But,
Along that same line, I have something similar, not like somebody else approached for like the same business, But there was, a point in time where some of our clients, especially some of the real estate clients, because, they're always trying to cut costs, and they wouldn't want to spend a lot of money on, and even when it is and there are many times where we do simple events where it's literally a podium and speakers for 50 people. And it's not a complicated setup, but it's important to still go with good quality. And this is like another thing. I won't forget, there was an event one time where, and we used sort of like a lower end, like it was basically they just like dropped off the speakers and like I plugged it in and like turned it on because they were really trying to cut costs. And we were outside and it was windy. So the wind kept blowing and it wasn't good. And there wasn't an on-site tech person. And ever since that event, I was like, it was several years ago, and I was like, never again. I'm telling them, if you want a podium speakers, we need an on-site tech, and like, if you don't want to pay for it, then we're not getting it. And like, sort of like laid the law down with some of the clients, because the quality is important. And when, like you said, when you go cheap, you get what you pay for sometimes.
Your reputation's on the line.
Exactly.
And nobody knows that service was donated or that came in at a much lower cost or they knew Aunt Susie and that's how they got, so your
Exactly.
reputation's on the line. And sometimes you can't avoid that, but we try to stay professional at all times and hire the right fit for the job because
Yeah, absolutely.
it speaks volumes.
Well, and that's the big thing. It's the fit for the job. I mean, there might be an event that's a little smaller and you might be like, okay, my budget's a little, tighter on this. I might be willing to roll the dice. But, when it comes to the Business Council's annual dinner and I have 1,000 people and I have Hillary Clinton or Indra Nooyi coming, I am not cutting my AV costs. Like, that is just one thing. Like, people will just not have salad that night. I'll find another way. But
Finally, we beat out salad.
exactly. Right,
You're big time now.
But I think that's the big thing, like Jess was saying, there might be a certain event where it's like, oh, okay, I can get away with something on the smaller side. But then again,
But even that could backfire on you.
even
So
that, it
really,
can, yeah.
you
And
gotta know
that's-
your audience.
And that's part of it too, because we are an agency that helps plan events. And so it was like, it looked bad. And I think both of you guys have mentioned this earlier, it reflects on us, the way the event goes, because we choose the vendors, we pick everything out and organize it. So to the client, they don't care what vendor did what, whether it was the florist or the photographer, or the AV or the caterer. They don't care. They're still going to come and, voice their complaints to me, and I need to be responsible for that. And it just all goes back into the same thing, the trusted vendors and being, reliable and things like that. And having, that trust in the quality of the work that, that you guys do.
So the underlining theme is it's really all about us.
Of course.
No, but it is really about that relationship. Sometimes you might be able to save a few dollars here and a few dollars there, but if you've now damaged your relationship or you don't have that trust factor, it's not going to be worth any savings. Well, maybe not any savings, but a nice savings.
Well, I think these, do we have one more question? We have time for just one.
Just one question.
Okay.
With your upcoming bigger events, what are some things you want to see, like I don't know, LED walls, maybe moving lights, anything kind of out of the ordinary?
See, those are the technical
All
things.
of the
that
above.
I-
everything. I want it
Like,
all.
show me. Sure, show me.
Anything that.
I think that's the thing, and I think that's like what Amanda was maybe saying earlier about showing us like new stuff. Like, I don't know that. That stuff sounds cool. I would love to send me
It
a
is
video,
pretty
send
cool,
me
I gotta tell you.
pictures.
Yeah,
I'd love to see it and be like, yeah, I want that. I forget what the name of it is, but like.
Above and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Like, send us pictures or videos from other events that you guys have done or something cool that you guys found that you have. And then it's just something that at any point, because then we can always just keep it in the back of our heads like, oh, I remember I saw that and that would be perfect for this. So.
Especially when you've worked on events